So the Valletta Design Cluster is a community space for cultural and creative practice. It is a project that was opened in March of last year. It is supported through European funding under ERDF and Government of Malta funds. There are a number of spaces here which can be used by beneficiaries, by many types of users, ranging from students to startups, companies, volunteer organizations, public entities. But it's mainly focused on culture, creativity, the social sphere and the social kind of benefits, and environmental aspects as well. The Valletta Design Cluster has a number of spaces, different spaces on 2 floors plus the roof. On the ground floor we have mostly communal spaces, shared spaces. These range from food space, a maker space, a co-working space, and a number of meeting rooms. And then on the 2nd floor upstairs we have 15 studios, which are there for organizations that are actually based here and working from here, and also conference facilities. Then the roof of the building is a public garden which is accessible for everyone for free.
The agency is the legacy of Valletta 2018 as European Capital of Culture. It was created to keep building on the momentum that we had achieved during this really intense and fantastical year. We're currently working on the first one for 2022, which is why we are using the studios at the Valletta Design Cluster, which have been a godsend basically, because Valletta is very limited in space, especially space of this size, and tools and skills. The impact was immediate if you look at the infrastructure, because it has improved the area considerably. It has improved the roads, access for some of the residents, but the more ephemeral quality of the impact that it has on the residents can only be seen, can only be qualified when you have projects like this and when you see how enthusiastically and how intensely they collaborated in the project.
So the Valletta Design Cluster aims to fill a gap which we have identified in terms of the provision of services, public services, for the cultural sector, mainly in terms of startups and young practitioners in the cultural and creative sector that are coming into the sector for the first time. It takes a look at design, it takes an understanding of design as a user-centered approach towards problem solving, and we have tapped into Interreg Europe and specifically Design for Innovation to understand more how this approach works. That is, how can we apply the theory, the principles of user-centered design to a space like this, to facilities like this, through workshops, meetings, peer learning, visiting other facilities on a European level at the partners, in regions, where we could see examples of support for SMEs and for designers specifically, be that financial, non-financial, physical spaces, facilities, and other forms of support. So we learned a lot.
The idea was that it fit very well with the ethos of our project, which is to work on the existing resources and talents in the community. Location-wise, it provides us with a great advantage. I think this was a way to give space back to the public. It was obviously in a quite dilapidated state, and now it is fully regenerated. There is also a way to provide a green space in the city, the roof garden being an example of this, and it is a way to provide maybe workspaces as well for Valletta residents. So I think it serves many purposes.
We kind of encountered the Interreg Europe program at the perfect time for us, because it was just before we were starting the design phase of the project, and we were looking for European partners from whom we could learn. I think the project assisted us a lot. Concretely, we made use of the principles that were being shared in a kind of workshop environment during the Design for Innovation Partners meeting. And we applied them for the design of this space. And that means the design of the physical space, but also the design of the program for the space, meaning what type of services are we going to offer the people who are going to make use of it. And that meant creating a platform for encounter, that is meeting people, as early as possible in the design stage. So we invited students, residents, non-governmental organizations, volunteer organizations, startups, practitioners in the cultural sector to visit the space before we actually started the works. So Design for Innovation is a project that looks at user-centered design as a tool of improving the performance of SMEs working in design. So Design for Innovation assisted us in developing that solution by engaging with the different stakeholders, with the future users, and that helped us understand that we needed a food space and it needed to have these facilities. We needed a co-working space, a maker space, studio spaces. So all of those needs emerged from the methodology that we learned in the context of Design for Innovation.
The studio as such is one of our essential, it is necessary for our primary activity, which is digitization. But for us, it's a win-win situation. I mean, already the fact that with what we can afford through our funding, we are offered not only the studio, but access to all areas and all facilities is just super. I think this makes a lot of sense for us to be in a creative hub where there are other creators where we can, because this is, we do not exist alone, we are interdependent. I mean, the content shows you that we are interdependent, we all have memories, plus we can all service each other. I think the cluster, it's new, so it's still being discovered. What I do like is that they've made it a building with open access, so people can come through. We benefit from this, the fact that it's a central area in an upcoming regenerated area. I think on a popular level, the fabric of the people makes a city, you know? And hopefully it will, the design cluster can contribute to the existing and living community around here.
That was this kind of, there was this interaction, this toing and froing between Design for Innovation and the insights that it provided us, and the funding mechanism, the locally based funding mechanism for structural funds to improve this building within the context of a wider regeneration of Valletta, because this is of course linked to the regeneration of Valletta as well.
And they offer the opportunity to cook in their industrial kitchens against a membership fee, which obviously is a huge advantage since we're still starting up. We do not have too many funds from our end, so this is kind of a huge, good step for us to take it to the next level. Everything we've needed, they've helped us with. Everything is super organized. Again, the equipment is state of the art. The fact that someone with almost no funds can expand their enterprise slowly through an innovation hub like this is a huge factor in not just deciding to keep this a small homemade product at home. So yes, I think they give a lot of opportunity for the people who need it and are looking for it. And yes, I have nothing but praise, honestly.
The Valletta Design Cluster opened and I posted my interest because I found finally an institution, a building, an establishment that supports the food and beverage industry by creating 2 kitchens where we could both teach and support startups such as Filfli itself.
When it comes to innovation, there is a lot of scope for further investment and support, especially from the public sector towards the entities that are key players in the innovation ecosystem. The cluster is an addition to that ecosystem in terms of the facilities that it can offer, but also in terms of the, let's say, the vision that it tries to promote, in terms of multidisciplinarity, collaboration between different entities. We're looking at the quadruple helix approach, and by bringing those different players together, those aspects together, we're trying to contribute positively towards improving the innovation ecosystem.
During the years we continued working, so to speak, in this artistic sphere up until 2018, when we actually had the European Capital of Culture here in Valletta. And then of course going through the years we got to know about the design cluster that was finished afterwards, and we got to know that organizations could apply to have a studio space and work at the cluster, and we thought that would have been a wonderful opportunity for us. And one of the main aspects of the cluster that attracted us, so to speak, was that we would have been in contact with other realities that were either in the arts field but also in the social field, the human rights field. That's the focus of our work. So that's how we got to know about it, and we applied, and we are happy to be here now.
I think the most maybe the strongest impact on the other partners, and we are, I think, unique in that, is that we have actually managed to tap into the structural funds thanks to the learnings from Design for Innovation, and use that to transform concretely a space, a major space. And another thing, restoring a place like this that has a lot of historical value, and you need to look into all the different layers, you know, in the last 400 years that have shaped the building. But then there is a kind of a present and a future to look at and to address through the facilities. And bringing those two dimensions together is always a challenge. But I think creatively it is the kind of challenge that we all like to work on.